Hey, it's us again.
Yeah, we're back.
The hell day is it? It's Tuesday, right?
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
See, which one am I supposed to be turning?
Which
there we go. It's all backwards. It's like trying to do something in a mirror. You know?
Which
Okay,
side? I know it drives me crazy. You'd
know.
think that I would be like used to it by now, but I am totally not. Every time I try to take the pictures for my book review thumbnails, I always, every single time I put the book on the wrong side.
Yeah,
and I'm just like, why am I so
going backwards and shit?
Why am I so stupid? I don't know. I can't get with it, man.
I have no idea why. Oh, I see.
You have no idea why what?
The reason it went into screensaver because I had this shit shut down. Okay, I got a new tablet. It's taking me a while to set it up.
Yeah, he got a new tablet yesterday. So he's just like, I can't do it. He was trying to transfer, like last night. He was trying to transfer everything over to the other one.
Sess is in there. Hey, Sess, I was on Facebook a couple days ago, and Facebook suggested you to me. I said, man, that's a girl in our chat.
See, there you go.
I don't know how fucking Google knew that.
Because doesn't Google own Facebook?
I guess it owns it.
And YouTube?
I guess they just know even who's in your chats.
Well, yeah. Because it's in if you're a subscriber.
Yeah.
Like I imagine that they introduce that's how they like filter through all your shit.
Right.
It's all like algorithms and fucking AI and shit.
Yeah, it says, do you know this person, basically?
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah. Yeah.
Well, because I get, you get synced, like, people that are on your Facebook, they're like, hey, you want to go join them on LinkedIn, or you want to go join them on Instagram, or whatever, because, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They always spying. So,
all right. T jumps in and says, happy Tuesday, gotta go.
Aw, well, thank you for coming by. You can watch it later, it's fine.
Yeah.
It'll stay up there. And I actually, the other day, this is how hardcore I am. I actually went in there and downloaded every single one of our live streams and backed them all up in my Dropbox.
Yeah.
So I'd always have them. Because like I said, I had the audio versions before, but I wanted the video versions too because we have so much of a visual component. Like, especially like, I want everybody to see how drunk we get at the end. Yeah. Like, especially last week's show where we don't even remember what the fuck happened at the end.
They gave me my drugs today. I got my injections. They gave it all to me. Fucking, I can just, they told me to shoot it up here. My fucking HRT.
You shoot up yourself.
Yeah. And
it comes in a big box.
Damn, that shit hurts. It's like a, it's the consistency of that shit is like honey, and you shoot it in there so it makes kind of like a pill inside your muscle.
It's like squishy. It's like
they don't want all that fucking testosterone to go into your bloodstream at once. So it's just
because you might explode.
Because you'll blow up. You'll turn green and Hulk the fuck out. You'll end up looking like Nick Cage and shit. Like no, not the bees, the bees.
That's exactly what would happen.
Yeah, got my blood work back. My numbers were fucking bad. They were fucking really low.
Yeah, I actually went to the office with him today because it's on the way to the post office because we had to go to the post office to mail, you guys' shirt and
I can't believe I'm actually alive.
I can't believe
and then I gained muscle during
when I heard them say like what it was and what it was supposed to be, I was kind of like, well, okay, well, that explains it.
If you're under 250 and under, you're fucking like way fucking underneath the normal. I was at 160.
Yeah.
160. My fucking numbers should be up to be like somewhere between 700 and 1,000. Well, that's what you want it to be. That's the test level of a fucking like a real hardcore like fucking 25-year-old. That's what you want it to be. But fucking that was way below even a 50-year-old.
Yeah. I
can't believe I looked and feel as good as I do. I mean, I feel bad, but man, I didn't think it was gonna be that low.
Yeah.
It's like fucking Jesus. My beard still grows. So I was like, well, how long is it gonna take for me to feel this? And they said probably about 3 weeks. And I was like,
I can't wait that long.
Damn. But I do kind of feel like it's slowly going in there. It feels like you hadn't had a cigarette in a long time. Back when you were a smoker, you smoke a little bit of cigarette. You're like, yeah, that kind of feels good. Oh, it's slowly going in there, yeah.
It's leaching into your musculature.
Yeah, it's going in there.
We'll see how it goes.
Yeah. That's why it was taking me so long to heal up after those workouts.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Mango says, have you got your top 10 horror movies sorted? Do you know what I did? Okay, so last night.
Tomorrow, isn't it?
Yeah, we're going to do it tomorrow night.
Okay.
Here's what I did, and I have to refine it because I said this show is going to be 17 hours long. What I did, initially, I was going to take the Cinemassacre route and pick, like, my favorite horror movies from every decade, because I was like, how am I going to fucking whittle this down? There's just no way. But I decided what I was going to do was that 1950s and before, since I haven't seen quite as many horror movies, like, from the golden age or whatever. Like, I've seen a lot of them, but a lot of them I don't remember. So 50s and before, I'm just going to do, like, a top 10 or a top 20 from that. But then after that, I'm going to do a top 10 or 20 for each decade, because there's no way I can fucking... There's just no way. I came up with, like, 1960s, I had this massive list. 1970s, I had a massive list. 1980s, I had a really massive list. 90s and 2000s were, like, a little sparser, but we're still, like, really, really big. So I'm just gonna... Tomorrow morning, I'll get in there and, like, whittle it all down. Yeah. And then we'll talk about it, and we'll talk about it on Wednesday. Yeah, so this show originally was just supposed to be double feature, because Louis... sent us this right here with Ouija and Ouija Origin of Evil.
Watched it in the same night, but we watched a movie in between it. Didn't we see both? We saw 3 movies that night, didn't we?
We watched that, and then we watched... Did we watch Jiu-Jitsu in the middle of it? And then we watched part 2. So we watched them the same night, but like right next to each other. Yeah. But then, so I was going to talk about those today. But then last night we decided to watch Free State of Jones on Netflix. So I said, well, shit, you want to throw that on there too? Because... You know, might as well. We're not doing another matinee this week, so we might as well. And it's from 2016, so it's totally legit. So, all right. So let's talk about the first Ouija, which came out in 2014. Now, the thing about this is Blumhouse. Michael Bay was one of the producers on it, which I didn't even realize. This is kind of like your Blumhouse formula, which, I mean, you have to give them, even if some of the movies aren't fantastic, you have to give them props, because Ouija, the first one, cost $5 million to make and made about $104 million back. Yeah, so it's profit. Like a massive. They're a massive, and like it's and the audiences skew very young. You know what I mean? Like teenagers, 20 somethings, like really fucking love these, and they will just go see every single one. Now the first Ouija, I feel like this one, this is not bad. It's like it's not anything that stands out particularly. I feel like. Was this... Okay, now, the whole Ouija horror movie boom, mini boomlet, if you want to call it that, because there's, like, been a lot of Ouija horror movies. Was this kind of the start of that? I know there were some back in the 80s, because it was Witchboard. That came out in 87, I think. It had fucking Tawny Katane in it. The chick chick that was on the hood of the car in that Whitesnake video. Yeah, she was the chick that Julian
was on the cover of the fucking Rat, the first Rat
Yes,
album.
That's right.
She was hot. She was a hottie.
She was, yeah. She was in Witchboard. She did a totally serviceable job in that movie.
She was actually kind of like the mama of the fucking, the den mother of fucking all the L.A. early metal hair bands.
Yeah.
We don't know the tonic. She was older than I think people thought she was, and she was scooping up on all these young rock stars, if I remember correctly.
Well, hell,
I think she was in her 30s and 40s through a lot of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, she didn't look it, but she was.
Well, you know, that wasn't that
much. Guys in their 20s.
I know dudes that are in their 20s are like, oh man, she's too old.
And they want to sit out there and fucking just tear themselves up over that fucking MILF porn and shit. And cougar porn. And they're like, yeah, she's 50, but you're fucking jerking it to that shit. Right? You're fucking, that's right. This is the fucking funniest thing. We're going on the way to the fucking... Going on the way to the mail to the fucking mailbox, not the mailbox. We got the post office.
The post office, yeah.
And there are fucking some teenage dudes in the car next to me, and the driver keeps looking at me, and I'm fucking looking at him, and he goes,
"Are you scoping me?"
He turns his fucking rap music down. You know, he's 2 white dudes, and he goes, "How you doing, sir?" And I was just
this is so weird. Kid. We were just like at a stop.
Yeah, and I'm going, "Where are you going?" And he goes, I'm going to the beach.
Yeah, they were going to I-4 to go to Daytona, I guess.
So what you do down there? And he goes, smoke some weed. And I said, why don't you drop acid? And they're like, oh, no. I said, come on, man, be a man, drop some acid. And then they're laughing, and they run off and shit.
I told him, I said, you should have said...
I don't know what the fuck the deal was with that.
I told him, he said, you should have said, Ghost, why don't you shoot up some heroin?
Go shoot up some heroin. Trying to fucking...
I don't really get what all that was about. How old were they? I didn't get a good look at them.
Probably about 19, 20.
Okay, so
they were scoping you out first, and then they saw me looking at him, and then he didn't want to be a puss, so he had to fucking hey, how you doing? Little skinny guys, So.
I didn't notice them. I just I heard the music when they pulled up because the windows were open, but I was just kind of like that was
funny
random.
Shit kids do,
Oh, kids say the darndest things.
Yes.
But yeah, so, all right. So what happens in this movie? What happens in this movie is pretty much what you would expect to happen in a Ouija movie, in the sense that somebody plays with a Ouija board and shit ensues. So what ends up happening with this is that...
Out of The Exorcist.
Yeah, well, they think that they're talking initially that, you know, they think they haven't really got anybody, but then the first woman, Deb, or the first girl... Her and her friend are doing it, and then it seems like she kills herself by hanging herself with, like, a string of Christmas lights, which I was like, glitzy. But obviously she didn't kill herself. It was some spirit that did it. So, but her friends all think that they committed suicide, that she committed suicide. So then they start using the Ouija board again, like, to contact her. And at first they think that it's her that's talking to them, and, like, they get all this weird shit that's happening outside of the Ouija board. Like, everybody gets a little message that says, like, "Hi, friend" on it. And for a long time they think that they're talking to her. And then after a while it turns out, spoiler alert, that they're not talking to her. That they're actually talking to this, not a demon, but, like, a horrible ghost. Now, so, like I said, this isn't that old a movie, so I don't super want to spoil it. It's not like it's a big, like, surprise or anything. The interesting thing is that they give you, like, the whole entire backstory, which is, like, a pretty good backstory, right? I mean, they think initially... I will say that the kind of twist in this...
I gotta check the stove.
Oh, you got ham on you? Yeah. We still have ham left over from...
No, that one was frozen, though.
Oh, this is a different ham?
Yeah.
I thought this was the same ham, like, from Saturday that he came in eating. So I will say that the whole switcheroo thing, that you think the bad person is not the bad person, this is kind of like the same twist that happened. I don't know if you guys have seen The Haunting of Julia, which I think in the UK is called Full Circle. It's actually based on a Peter Straub novel, which is just called Julia. And a similar thing happens in that. So I don't know if they got the idea from that or if it was just like, I mean, it's not... It's random enough that it could have just been a coincidence, you know what I mean? Because it's just kind of like, oh, you thought it was this person, but it's this person. Because I feel like twists are kind of thing. So maybe that's not what it was. But, like, when I saw that, that was immediately what it reminded me of. But, I don't know. I feel like a lot of people haven't seen that movie, even though I love it. So, maybe not. Maybe I'm just, like, totally talking out of my ass. But the interesting thing, so Lynn Shay is in this. Did I say that? She's in, like, a bunch of the Conjuring movies. Was she in Insidious? I guess I like a lot of the Conjuring movies, but it's like they kind of all bleed together. So I can't remember, because I know there's a couple different franchises in there, and I know that there's like some offshoot shit.
I don't know.
I mean, technically the Conjuring ones are like the Warren case ones.
Yeah, that's all Blumhouse stuff, though, isn't it? No, that's
James Wan.
Okay, James
Now,
Wan.
Insidious... is fucking the Warrens in Insidious? I don't even remember. I remember liking Insidious, but I can't remember.
They all kind of blend together.
That's what I'm saying. They're good, but it's like they kind of blend together.
It used to be that they used to have all these damn cable cable television series that actually people would watch, like A Haunting. I got them all on DVD. She or a lot of them on DVD. She gave them to me.
Yeah, I got a box set.
Blumhouse kind of picked up that market because people don't really watch cable anymore. They're smart. They do a very workmanlike, by-the-book movie that still has a little bit of character to it. But they don't do anything out of the ordinary. It's got its own motif. And that's why this first Ouija movie... It's
just like a creepy movie that, like, when you go to the theater or when you rent it or whatever, it's just you pop some popcorn, you get some fucking snacks, you get some of your friends together, and you all sit around in the dark and you watch it, and it's creepy and fun.
We're not talking about Kubrick or anything. There's not a lot of artistic flair in them. Because why would you do that? The audience that's watching this, these kids, they don't know what any of that is. They don't have those tastes.
They just want to see something kind of scary.
They just want to... They don't have those cinematic tastes yet. They have not yet fully fucking formed their own opinions. Besides, they would see the cool shit that we like. They would see that as like old people stuff. That's what they would say.
Old people stuff.
Shining, that's old people stuff. Yeah, that's what they would be like, you know. Yeah, why is it moving so slow? What's up? Why isn't there any music in this? It'd be shit like that. You know what I mean? So they don't have the taste. So what they do is they just kind of make a pre-package. It's kind of like... This is kind of like the Applebee's of fucking horror movie
That's a good way of putting it.
It doesn't offend anybody. It's nothing really that special.
And every now and then it kind of hits the spot.
Yeah, sometimes you're just like, yeah, okay, yeah, that'll work. So, and they're cheap and they sell well. Well, you know, the production costs are cheap and they sell real well. So it's a winning strategy. really, when you think
well,
about
obviously,
the way Blumhouse does.
I think all of their movies have
they
made
sometimes come out of the horror. Didn't they do Fantasy Island?
They did.
Yeah, which I actually liked it. I thought it was amusing. Was it fucking a masterpiece? No. Fuck no.
It was an interesting premise, for sure.
It's the fast food of movies. You're not there. It
is kind of, yeah.
You're not there to fucking, see an Oscar. You're not there for fucking Ben-Hur. Yeah. Or fucking,
Like I said, you just want to have some snacks with your friend, like scream with your friends. That's all.
Yeah, and fucking Hernandez is in there saying, he's seen with a bunch of kids in the theater. Yeah. In every Blumhouse movie we saw. Well, actually... Remember La Llorona?
La Llorona, yeah.
That wasn't Blumhouse, but that was what's his name? Who's it? That was from the Conjuring universe.
That was James Wan, wasn't it? Or he produced it. I don't think he directed it.
I think that's Conjuring word. But man, fucking some of these kids, they're just funny as hell because it's like they can't handle anything fucking scary. They had this little skinny fucking Latino kid, and I could hear him going, oh! Remember that? And then he'd fucking pretend like he didn't do that.
That wasn't
really
that
scary. Then he'd try to
play
it off. I wasn't scared. And then the fucking he said I wasn't scared, and the whole fucking theater fucking
I remember that.
Remember that shit?
That was really funny.
That fucking thing goes, and then went away, and he goes... And he goes, I wasn't scared. And then everybody laughed.
I was just having an asthma attack, you guys. Don't hate.
That shit was so funny. I saw the dude later, and he's like fucking 5'9" and weighs like fucking $105. I wasn't scared. Yeah, you were. You was fucking terrified. Though?
I like that people have. Yeah. Somebody asked us what webcam we were using. Can you see what that even says? I can't even see what that says. Put your glasses on.
Oh shit! They're making me work, man.
Oh my god! Damn. Imagine that.
I'll tell you what. I'll move it here, and you can see it. I don't know what it says. I don't know what it says.
I don't even actually remember what that says. It's just some. That's actually like a really cheap.
It's a cheap one.
I just got it on Amazon. I think it was like $80.
Yeah.
I mean it's a nice webcam, but it's very, very simple, and it's got like a little tripod. Most of the cool shit is like we just have all these like colored lights in the background. So that's probably what, you know what I mean? And we have it. It's dark in here, but just with colored lights. Because I don't know, I like that. It gives it a little party atmosphere.
Did you see the longer version of Dr. Sleep? Because the director's cut's much better than the.
Yeah.
Can you push that down? I can't really even see the screen. There you go.
Oh,
okay.
I was fucking with it.
When you can go online and you can get the director's cut, it's better than the theatrical edition. It's got like an extra half hour in it that really fleshes it out.
I want to say one last thing I wanted to say about Ouija was that I'm pretty sure that the kid that was in it that played Pete, who was the boyfriend of the first girl that committed suicide or got killed by the ghost or whatever, I'm pretty sure that was the same dude that was in the Bye Bye Man, which I don't remember if that was a Blumhouse one or not, but I think that was like the first horror movie, well not the first one, but the first recent one that I was like watching it and I just didn't feel the need to finish it. It didn't piss me off or offend me or anything. I just couldn't get into it. And I never did finish it. Like the trailer looked cool and it had like some cool imagery in it. But for some reason I don't know, man. I just never like caught the wave of it and I just didn't care. And then like I was just like, man, fuck this. I'm going to watch something else. And I don't usually do that. So
but then
make of that what you will.
One of our
Logitech. Oh, you know what? It is a Logitech. Thank you.
One of our regulars, Tila, who was just on here a minute ago, she didn't like Dr. Sleep. Then I said, see the extended version, the director's cut. And she came back and she said, oh yeah, it's a different movie. It's a lot better. Yeah,
it's a lot better. Well, it's got a lot more like stuff.
It's a lot more like The Shining. It's more Kubrickian. She watched The Shining and then Dr. Sleep, the extended cut of Dr. Sleep, side by side, and then she really liked it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Has a lot of the same tone.
Another thing, too, I want to say about Ouija, and I guess this happens a lot, but I guess when they first shot it, and then, they do the thing where they, have people come in and watch it, like test audiences, and apparently test audiences really, really didn't like it, and so they had to reshoot half of the shit.
Thank you for the flash bulbs, my friend. Thank you for
really?
The flash bulbs. That's for Jones.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whoever Jones is. Who's Jones? Which Jones?
Wait, Free State of Jones? Though we're going to talk about that, maybe.
Okay, we're going to talk about
Thank you, Mango. Yeah, we'll get to that in a minute.
We'll get to that.
But yeah, so, like I said, it's a decent watch. I mean, I wasn't bored. I wasn't like annoyed or anything like that. It was just like a fun movie.
It's just a fun movie. Yeah.
And like I said, I guess they did the right thing, like reshooting half the movie because it ended up making like all the fucking money. So then they said, well, that made all the money, so let's make a sequel. So 2016, the sequel came out. Now, interestingly, they kind of like threw around a couple different ideas for this. Initially, they were even thinking of making like a sequel, but that didn't really have anything to do with the original. But then they got Mike Flanagan on board, and he was just kind of like, man, I just, like, one, I hate sequels, but two, he's like, I really want to kind of go into the backstory. So he essentially made a prequel. Now, I think what's interesting about this, one, he said that he really wanted this to have the feel of a 70s horror movie, like The Changeling. He said he made the director of photography watch The Changeling like a whole bunch of times, like before they made the movie. And also he wanted it to be mostly made with only shit that they would have had in the 70s. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
It's got a good tone.
It really does. And it's like miles better than the original. It's just, it's got its own kind of thing.
You mean the first one?
Than the first one, yeah. What's interesting about it is that you essentially know what the story's going to be because they give you the backstory of, of Doris and all them, like, from the original, like, the ghosts from the fucking Ouija board in the first one. So they gave you the whole backstory, and, like, her mom was a medium, and, like, she sewed her mouth shut and all this other kind of stuff. And so the prequel, Origin of Evil, is essentially just telling that story from the 60s or whenever it was. I think it was like supposed to be 1967 if I remember correctly. But even though you kind of already know the story, they kind of throw a couple little curveballs in there, but it's still compelling because even though you knew the backstory, it's still, I don't know, just like the tone of it is so cool. And like I said, there's a bunch of Henry Thomas is in it. And, there's so a lot of, Mike Flanagan's act, man, you fucking blurred all my shit out. Look what you did.
I did that?
Yeah.
It's because it's trying to focus on me.
Yeah, from moving. So, like, you keep moving around.
Crazy.
Black Magic Film Studio says, I love Drag Me to Hell. We need to do that one of these days. I don't think, you've never seen Drag Me to Hell, have you? It's Sam Raimi.
No, I don't think I have.
Oh, it's good. I saw that in the theater when it came out. It's like, it's really, really entertaining. Super gross.
Ouija Origin of Evil is, it's a lot better. I thought it was a lot better than the first one.
Well, it was a lot more distinctive, like I said. You can tell a lot more style.
A lot more style, a lot more personality. The tone was a lot better. It wasn't workmanship like the first one. It was artistic. And it just had it felt more like film.
Yeah.
The first one kind of felt kind of like cable TV a little bit. Very high-end cable TV.
Yeah, it was a little bit more of like a throwaway. And I don't mean that to sound
not a bad way. They
dismissive.
Just got it done.
Yeah. They just kind of like, we just want to watch a scary, make a scary movie that a bunch of, teenagers and 20-year-olds will go see.
It's almost kind of like it wasn't really thought out that well. It was just, let's get it done. And it ends up being kind of samey. Same tone, same visuals, same kind of stories. This one felt very different. The acting's a lot better.
And it has a lot of actors that Mike Flanagan uses a lot.
Yeah.
Including the girl that was in Oculus. She's a little bit older.
And when I say the acting's a lot better, it's not like that there was bad acting in the first one. No, that's not what it was. The actors in this one, you can tell, were more into it. They were more distinctive characters. You felt like you're learning about them in this movie. The other ones, you can tell they're kind of cardboard cutout throwaway characters. They're not that important. They're not really drawing you into it.
Yeah, they have, like, particularly with these types of horror movies, like the first one, you kind of have, like, stock characters. It's like, here's the hot ditzy girl, and here's kind of the more serious dark-haired girl. That's a good way to put it. And here's the jock dude, and here's, like, the soulful poet type dude, and here's this, that, you know what I mean? So they always kind of have these stock characters.
Yeah, this one's more around this cute little girl, her older sister, who's like a cute teenager, and then their mom, who's kind of like, cute chick in her 30s, late 30s. Maybe.
And that's the same actress that was in Haunting of Hill House, and she was in a bunch of other
and the paranormal stuff happens, and it got complicated quick, and then people's boyfriends get killed, and it was more like a. And what was funny is that when it started with the fonts and everything and the cars, you can tell this is 60s.
Yeah.
60s, late 60s, early 70s.
I think it was supposed to be 1967.
Yeah.
And
and they have good clothes. Like the costumes that they're wearing are late 60s period stuff. I can remember people, as a little kid, I remember people dressing or looking like that all the way into the 70s. And you could tell that they didn't make the same mistakes that happens in a lot of these new cheap Western movies, where that kind of looks like Western clothing, but that's rayon, dude.
Yeah.
And fucking they didn't have rayon in the
It's polyester.
So you could see it was all natural fibers for the most part. People wore a lot of wools and cottons and different tweeds, and the sweaters had a certain tone to them because they were wool or cotton, and it's just not the same. When you start putting modern materials in a period piece, and it came across as a period piece, so I liked it. It was a lot better planned out and a lot better thought out. It felt more high end.
Like I said, you can tell that someone like Mike Flanagan directed it, who only kind of takes projects if he really kind of wants to. He doesn't seem to half-ass anything.
Right.
Everything I've seen of his has been, at least, interesting. Like, he always does really interesting things to it. It's funny because, so the first Ouija, like I said, it cost $5 million and it made $106 million, something like that. However, on Rotten Tomatoes, it only has 6% positive reviews. Origin of Evil, on the other hand, didn't make quite as much money. It still made 81 million, which, was many, many, many times its budget. So it was still, very successful. But on Rotten Tomatoes, it has, 90% positive reviews. So you can see, so, the critics were, said this is, much, much, much better than it really had any right being. And the thing that really made it really good to me, not only is it a period piece and it's really, really well done, the characterization's really well done, it's really creepy, but I like that he took a story that essentially you already knew, because like I said in the first one, they kind of gave you the backstory, so you knew who these characters were and what was going to happen, but he still made it compelling enough that you really wanted to watch it.
Yeah, Pat, if you don't like samey, I really wouldn't. The first Ouija movie is samey, but it's good samey.
Yeah.
It's not bad at all. But you're not going to really walk away from it with any kind of distinct impressions, if you ask me.
Yeah.
You want to see Origins of Evil. That one's a lot better.
Yeah.
It's the prequel.
Yeah, and you don't have to have seen the first one, because it doesn't matter.
Makes a good standalone.
And I like, too, that Origin of Evil goes into... Because I love any type of, seance type shit. I love seance type shit. Especially, old school seance type shit. All the old school mediums and people come and do all the fucking, in the Haunted Mansion. I love that kind of shit. So I like that it focused a lot on that because she was a medium and whatnot. All right,
what's your final verdict? Is that it?
Yeah. Well, okay. And then we're going to talk about Free State of Jones, because we just watched that last night as well. Yeah, so this was another one. We actually hadn't planned on doing, like I said, a third movie, but because Tom was in the mood to watch Free State of Jones last night, which is on Netflix, at least in the U.S. I'm not sure about other countries.
Yeah.
This came out in 2016, and it's a historical drama, which, as far as I could determine, is pretty historically accurate. Yeah. The guy that wrote it and directed it, Gary Ross. Gary Ross, yeah.
Where's he from?
He's probably related to you. I don't know, actually.
Okay.
He might be related to you.
Yeah. But my family on my dad's side is from the Free State of Jones.
Yeah. So he very well might be a distant relation.
And I know that one of my kin named David Key, who was a professor at Ole Miss University in history, did a lot of the research and wrote a book about Newton Knight and the Free State of Jones, and evidently that ended up inspiring this movie.
Yeah.
Okay. Wasn't the guy you just mentioned though?
Yeah.
All right. It's just that it was my cousin basically. He's now in I come from an area where everyone is cousin or kin, even if they're not really related to you. If your dad grew up with these people, they're kin.
Yeah.
And their children can also be considered cousins, but they're not blood relatives. Okay, so David wasn't a blood relative, but we grew up together for the summers.
Yeah.
And our dads grew up together, and this went back for generations. And our families knew the living Knights. They're still there. Okay, and I'm getting ahead of myself. This movie's about Newton Knight. And he's during the Civil War, he fought on the side of the Confederacy, but then deserted from the Confederacy, went back to Jones County, and launched basically a slave revolt and a bunch of runaway or a bunch of people that didn't want to fight in the war, and they fought against the Confederacy for a while, and then when Sherman turned them down, Free State of Jones kind of for a while was in a state of war between the United States and the Confederacy. So I kind of come from a people that are very we just say no to shit. Okay? No. And there wasn't anything written about all this. It was, but only the authorities knew about it.
Yeah, and it's a fascinating story. I'm surprised there hasn't been more shit about it.
They wouldn't teach common people in Jones County about Newtonite. It was legend. And I grew up with these legends, and this movie confirms everything that we were told as kids about Newtonite and what had happened. I loved this movie. It was really good, and it explained a lot of stuff. It also talked about Jasper and Jasper counties, because there was the Jaspers too. Jasper County. And then it's weird, they're doing all these ambushes and revolts in all places where I used to go all the time, like Ellsville. It's right near... Is this right near... Heidelberg, yeah. Heidelberg has a population of maybe 700 people right now. And it always had the population of about 700. This is taking place not in the modern South, but the old South. The population was 1/10 what it is now. It was
just all farms.
It was all farms and bushwhacking and murders and... but it was a good place, too. Even to this day... Mississippi is the poorest of all the states. It's about 30% black, which means it's the blackest of all states. It's almost kind of like something from South Africa. It has the most guns per capita of all states, but it has one of the lowest crime rates of any state, and has the highest, not so much standard of living, but satisfaction. Life satisfaction level. People love it there. It's a fun place. You don't make much money, but you don't need much money to buy anything. You can get a nice house, a real nice house for $300 a month in certain areas.
Yeah. I mean, it's like kind of in the middle of nowhere. But,
in the middle of nowhere, and it might be an 1800s house.
Yeah.
Or an early 1900s house. But it has 3 stories, and it's fucking huge, and it looks like something off a damn horror novel, magazine off of a horror fucking poster or something from a horror movie, like a haunted house, but it's only $300. Then I challenge you to go try to air condition that fucking thing.
Well, yeah,
you can't air condition.
Mississippi, y'all. You
can't air condition it. You can't fucking heat it.
You don't need to be there in the summer.
No,
fucking with no air conditioning.
No.
Fuck that shit.
And then, but anyway, Jenny can give you the details of the movie. I thoroughly enjoyed this movie.
It was actually really good. It was like, it was, I mean, I was expecting it to be good because I knew a little bit about kind of the history behind it. But the guy that wrote and directed it, Gary Ross, apparently, I mean, sadly, this movie only made like half its budget back. It got like decent reviews, but it's long. It's like 2 hours and 19 minutes. So most people are like, man, I don't want to sit through that. And, I don't know, maybe that's kind of what it was. But the dude that wrote and directed it, he had been working on this for 10 years. This was like his passion project.
Yeah.
He had made like some other kind of bigger movies. Oh shit, man. I think he worked on the Hunger Games movies, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. But this is really what he wanted to make because he was fascinated by this story and nobody had really done it. And so he just spent 10 years like researching the shit. And if you look at the end, like all the historical consultants, there's like a fucking like list of like all these historical consultants.
Yeah.
And he was just like, look, he found it fascinating that because he's like, this is something that's not really all that well known in American history. And there's not really a lot of movies, there's a lot of Civil War movies, but there's not a lot of ones set during like the Reconstruction era.
Yeah.
And he's like, that's just an era that's underrepresented in film. So he's like, so I thought this would be a really good story to adapt because, and it's like I said, as far as I know, I'm sure there's some shit in there for like, dramatic license or whatever, but this seems pretty historically accurate.
From the way that was, like I said, there was almost nothing written about this when I was a kid.
Yeah.
It was just legends. I'm sure there were records, but they were probably in town halls or in police departments. So, a lot of this shit was crime, you know.
Yeah.
The Confederacy was the legitimate government at the time, and these guys were going out fighting Confederate soldiers and murdering Confederate leaders.
Yeah.
All right. And when you see how this, so of course it would have been considered a crime, not warfare, but it was warfare. It was asymmetrical warfare. A lot of infrastructure attacks, burning people's cotton up.
Yeah.
Newt Knight and all these guys that didn't want to fight in that war did not want to fight and die over cotton. And they found out that escaped slaves didn't want to die over cotton either.
And they were like living out in the swamps.
They were living out in swamps and stuff. Cotton was, when you think of cotton, you just kind of laugh at it. But cotton was kind of like the oil business of the day. It was a huge industry. Mm-hmm. People were trying to make living as farmers and, what do you call them, sharecroppers. But they just couldn't compete against plantations.
Yeah.
Plantations were the oligarchs of the South. They were kind of like the Bill Gates and the fucking Zuckerbergs of the South. They would just drive you into fucking poverty because you couldn't compete with slave labor. Nobody liked it. Then the South started to try to secede from the North, and the North, for some reason, didn't want to let them go. They didn't really talk about it too much at the time. And really, the secessionist movement against the Union was a conspiracy, really, against very rich plantation owners. They didn't want to lose their money and their power. Now, were they willing to go out and fight these wars against the Union? Of course not. They were sending these poor sharecroppers out.
Yeah. Well, because they even mentioned this in the movie, and this is historically accurate, that if you owned 20 slaves, then you didn't have to fight.
And then you didn't
because
have to go.
You were rich enough to not have to go.
Now, when you see American Civil War warfare, they always show skirmishes and standing battles with cannons. That really wasn't most of it. Most of it looked like World War I. It was trench warfare.
And they do show that in this one. They did that very good.
They did have some skirmish shit, but then the rest of it was kind of like Vietnam, where it was people bushwhacking people out in the woods.
Yeah, ambushing people out in the fucking
taking their supplies and killing them. The economy of the South started to crumble. People started to starve. The Confederacy would steal everybody's crops and send that to the army, and then the people who grew it would starve. Basically, it was just a bad time. And then. Jones County was the main one that revolted against it, and Sherman wouldn't help them though, so they.
It's like he would, but he gave them like a third of what they wanted, so they were just kind of like, man, fuck that.
Yeah, so like fuck the United States too, and there's a line in there where Newt Knight says, "We've always been." He goes, we are our own country now. We're the free state of Jones. And when you think about it, we have always been our own country. And because that's, if you went there and grew up there, the mentality of the people there is basically that they're not in the United States. Not really.
Well, and you have to think, at their height, how many dudes did he have? It was a couple hundred. And they had actually taken over like 3 counties, maybe 4 counties. Yeah. So it's like it wasn't nothing. Like it was kind of a big deal. They did take a big area. Because like I said, this is during the Civil War. It was like little skirmishes. Like companies weren't that big. Yeah. And they didn't have like real high-tech weapons or anything. Yeah. So a few hundred dudes could do a lot of damage and could take a lot of property, and they did. And the war was really only, or the so-called Civil War was only half of that war. Once the war was over, Jones County got shafted again. Because the revolt, Newton Wright, the revolt, and all his followers were Mississippi Republicans. And they were being oppressed by things called Dixiecrats, which are Southern Democrats, were known as Dixiecrats. They were pro secession, and they were pro slavery.
even after slavery ended, they were still trying to reinstitute it with new programs that was slavery but named something else.
They copy-pasted the word apprenticeship in there instead of slave, and then they would just, but they left the rest of the law the same.
Right.
In Mississippi.
And you had northern carpetbagger families coming in as part of the Reconstruction to become the new plantation owners. And they would adopt Dixiecrat ways. They wouldn't bring the North with them, per se. They just adapted it to the South. It was, the movie talks all about it. It's not this clean thing. The Reconstruction was terrible. Then the Dixiecrats hired if you were a Dixiecrat, you were Klan adjacent.
Yeah.
They would hire the Klan to attack Southern Republicans and any blacks that wanted to vote, to try to keep them from voting. Then when they would vote, they wouldn't count their votes. So, and it shows all that. The only thing that I didn't like about the movie is that they showed the Klan attacking the blacks, but then they kind of made it seem like the blacks and the Republicans did not retaliate. They retaliated back and forth for nearly 100 years.
I mean, they kind of showed that a little bit, but it was mostly property damage.
Mostly property damage, but yeah, so the Civil War went all the way up into the 60s.
Well, yeah.
In Jones County. And it was just, that's why I said in some of the other shows, I said Mississippi was the North Korea of the United States. Basically. They were at war for about 100 years. It was low-level civil conflict.
Yeah, it went on a long
time. And what ended up happening eventually is that basically what ended up happening is that the Dixiecrats beat the Southern Republicans into submission. They eventually got black people to vote Democrat so they could have segregation, which that sounds crazy. But at that point, black people wanted segregation because they wanted to be free of white people and safe.
Yeah,
they had to be separate.
You can't blame them.
And it was quite a tactic. You got Dixiecrats getting the Klan to attack blacks, so blacks would vote for Dixiecrats because Dixiecrats wanted the separation, and that would keep both sides safe. All of this shit basically expunged from mainstream history, but that's how it was really done.
I mean, I learned about it in school, back in the 80s and 90s.
You wouldn't hear about it now, probably.
But it's just, I mean, little stories like this. I feel like they, because there's so much, American history is so fucking complicated, and they have to kind of skate over a lot of things to get everything in. So I feel like this is kind of a smaller story that maybe wouldn't get told in schools just because, there's so many other details and it's very local.
Right.
So I'm actually really glad, even though it didn't do very well at the box office or anything, but I'm really glad that they made a movie about it because it's really fascinating. And as I said, it seemed like they did a really good job trying to get it as historically accurate as possible. And I have to say, Matthew McConaughey plays Newton Knight. I think this might be the best role I have seen him in.
Oh yeah, he's good. The only there's a couple of inaccuracies. The accents are not very Mississippi,
but they're passable.
They're passable, but not real close. We had different dialects based upon class. It was Jones County was very Celtic and Teutonic. There was a lot of Irish sounding southern accents. The rich people sounded British. They didn't have any southern accents really. They kind of had they didn't sound British. They sounded transatlantic.
Yeah.
And here we are, this and I have recordings of the way they spoke. And,
that's why you get that in all those old recordings and stuff. That's why everybody sounds like they're putting on that fucking voice because they were kind of.
Sharecroppers and blacks had southern accents, and there was kind of a fusion between the two.
Now you said the one woman that was in this that played the bar, the lady that owned the tavern. That sounded like a real Mississippi accent.
Yeah.
I should note that now one thing that's inaccurate. This actually was shot in Louisiana. and not in Mississippi.
Not in Mississippi.
So the swamps that they were in look more like Louisiana swamps, or it looks like the Everglades.
As soon as I saw them, I go, that's not in Jones County.
It doesn't look like Mississippi swamp, but it's a, swamp, or whatever.
The Jones County or Mississippi concept of what a swamp is very different from the Louisiana version of a swamp. A Louisiana swamp is a bayou, all right, or a bayou, and it's got knees that come up out of the water. It's a forest underwater. What a Mississippian would call a swamp would be a pine forest. But it's low. It's a lowland pine forest, and it's got a lot of shallow lakes in it. Possibly a little river going through it. It's not... You could walk through it, but you couldn't take a big formation through it. That's why they were hiding in it. Because back then they did skirmish lines and stuff. And if you got horses into there, they probably could only get in there maybe 2 files side by side. So it would make them more of a target with the weapons that they had back then.
Can we talk a little bit, too, about... I like that they kind of went into this a little bit. Now, Newt Knight had a wife.
He had 2 wives.
And, well, I was going to say, he had a wife to start with, a white one, and they had a son. And then when he deserted and, ran off into the swamps to hide because they were looking to hang his ass... he ended up meeting this other woman.
She was a slave.
Her name was Rachel. And I don't know if that was her real name, but that was her name in the movie. And they it
was her name.
Yeah, and then his white wife kind of took off for a long time. And
she ran to Alabama.
Yeah,
safety.
Yeah, she took off for a while because she thought she was probably in danger too, which she probably was. So I don't know how long. It was several years that they were apart. But Newt Knight and Rachel also ended up having a kid. And they kind of jump ahead in the movie a little bit every now and then.
To the 40s.
To the 40s. Yeah, because I think it was 85 years after the Civil War or whatever. And the descendant of those two, he was on trial because...
He was 1/8 black.
He was 1/8 black. What would Rachel have been? His great-great-great-grandmother?
Something like that.
Was black. And because of that, he couldn't marry a white woman, even though he looked as white as any other honky motherfucker.
And he was married to her already.
Yeah, they married and then they found out. Yeah.
They got him on trial for marrying a white woman. This is back in the 40s.
Yeah.
See, that's another thing that he had to bring up. Out of this damn race war, during the Reconstruction, they basically beat the blacks into supporting the Democrat or the Dixiecrat or Democrat Party to get segregation to happen. That was the only way they were going to have peace. Segregation required racial separation. You couldn't intermarry anymore.
Yeah, it was illegal.
But that was a new thing. That wasn't around before. Before the Civil War, going back all the way to the 1700s, sharecroppers, no matter what color they were, married each other, including the black ones.
Well, and I feel like it wasn't just that. There was a lot, all different races kind of married.
There was Indians there too.
I don't think people were all that picky.
There were Native Americans.
Asians, there was all.
They weren't that concerned about it. In fact, in the 1800s, the war happened around 1865, I think, 1860.
That's about when it ended.
About when 1865 ended. Well, before that time, we're talking about in the 1850s, late 1850s. First of all, the population was very small. There weren't very many people. There weren't very many black people. But most of the black people at that time were free. All right? Most of them weren't slaves. Most of them were free sharecroppers. It's because they kind of had they would have excess slaves and they'd kick them out, basically. So they were just walking around and they just became free people. And they became sharecroppers and they married whites. They lived right side by side on the same little properties. The whole segregation thing was the Dixiecrats' attempt to unravel the interracial marriages that had been happening for a long time. And to kind of, in a way, reinstitute slavery is what it was. It was a fake form of slavery. The whole thing was fucking nuts.
Yeah, well. I just thought that was really interesting that they kind of put that in there, that his many years, 85 years later, their descendant was on trial for marrying a white woman, even though he looked white too. He would never. I mean, that's. Like,
they didn't really get into it that much. They got into it some, but they're looking. The Mississippi in a way was. History would say, well, Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, they were slave states. Not really. Half the damn counties in those states had it banned. There was already a bunch of disagreement over. Most people were sharecroppers and they didn't believe in that shit. They didn't think that you could own another man. Now, did that mean that it was all kumbaya between whites and blacks? No.
No.
No. Not at all. They didn't like each other. They saw black people as competitors. They didn't want them around. As a matter of fact, a lot of the same people that were fighting for abolition also wanted black people to be sent to be freed so they get out of those plantations, but they wanted them returned to Africa. And a lot of them went back. That's where some of those African states came from.
Yeah. That
they were sent back. They had government support. They were given weapons and guns and tools, and they went down there and rebuilt. What was it? It's Ivory Coast, I think, is one of them. I think
in Liberia.
In Liberia, they have American flags as damn national flags. That's where they came from. But it was just a messy part in history, and this fucking movie
all history
shows
is messy.
Yeah.
And so I like that this kind of goes into like a lot of stuff. I mean, obviously, like it's a 2.5 hour movie, so it's like they're gonna have to,
cut things short
and winnow it down.
Yeah.
But I mean, to be fair, I think they went a lot into because this covers a lot of ground. It covers like from sort of the early days of the Civil War into like Reconstruction, and then like I said, there's some parts where it jumps ahead, so it can show like the dude's descendant and how that worked out. And I was thinking about that one scene where Newt Knight was reading his I guess it's this little constitution, like for the Free State of Jones, and it was just like
what the Constitution was.
Yeah, and it's just like, so I thought that was like kind of cool that they put that in there, and I'm assuming that that's historically accurate, or I don't really.
No,
know.
It probably was.
I think it was. It sounded pretty.
No man should exist to keep another man poor.
Well, no man should be allowed to
keep another man
poor. Become rich by making other people poor.
Yeah, he's talking about those plantations.
Yes, that's what you're talking about. That, and then there was what were the other? There were 4 rules altogether, and then there was one.
What you plant in the ground is yours.
Yeah, that too. If you walk on 2 legs, you're a man.
You're a man, right? Yeah. Like you walk on 2 legs, you're a human being.
Doesn't matter what color you are.
Yeah.
And then I can't remember what the other one was. Shit.
Yeah, they were just kind of.
But they had very, very simple.
Yeah, very simple. It was just that would have been what would have. It was what was important to sharecroppers.
Yeah.
At that time.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, I give the movie fucking 2 thumbs up.
It's really good. Like I said, it's long and it's like, but if you're into like period piece, like historical drama, if you don't know much about this time period, I think it did a really good job like covering it.
But seeing this movie, it explained a lot that I was told as a kid, and a lot of the legends that we had turned out that they were true.
Yeah.
And it explains why you had to have a certain damn genome to survive that shit, and it explains a lot about the way my family is.
Yeah.
It really does, yeah. And
all right, so man, we went for an hour today.
Yeah, okay.
Pretty good.
That's a good one.
All right, so tomorrow night is Wednesday. When you guys know what that means drunken party stream. Mm-hmm. And like I said, I'm gonna be talking about favorite horror movies. I'm gonna try to winnow it down, but I'm gonna have to try to winnow it down by decade. I can't winnow it down any farther.
Oh, but you know what though, I forgot to mention.
What's that?
Watch that Free State of Jones. Not only is it informative, it's a good movie.
Yeah, it's also, like I said, there's really good, the acting in it is really good. A lot of good
action in it. Fucking bad shit fucking fucks up. Newt Knight fucking joins up with these freed slaves. His best friend's the dude that played the black guy from Predators. He also did remember the one where they're driving, they're doing the road trip?
Yeah, Green Book.
Green Book.
Yeah.
He's that guy. He's a really good actor.
Ali, yeah.
Marshall Ali, yeah, he's a real good actor. And when he finds him, he's got this damn... Because he'd ran away before, he's got this iron collar on with these spikes that go up like that. He can't lay down because his head's in a damn cube. And he's had it on for fucking years.
And he's just like, I'm just kind of used to it now.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. But, see the movie. It's a good movie.
It is a very good movie. Yeah. I liked it a lot.
And it lines up with everything, all the legends we had when we were kids, growing up in Jones County.
Yep.
Yep. Or I'm going to call it Free State. I call it a Free State. Fuck all y'all.
I'm starting my own.
Fuck all y'all.
I'm starting my own state with blackjack and hookers.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we'll be back tomorrow night about 5 p.m. Eastern time. I'm gonna talk about some horror movies and whatever else we start rambling about when we get drunk. You know how we do. All right, so thanks everybody for dropping by, and we'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye.